Hey everybody, it's Sam over at Scorpio Rising Astrology here with another video for our video series on the signs, doing Signs 101, just talking about the 12 zodiacal states. I like to refer to them as states because they are definitely still expressions of life, but each one of them views life just a little bit differently, kind of as we move through the wheel and as the wheel of life turns. And here we are recording on Wednesday, Mercury's day, and so we're going to review the two Mercury-based signs. We'll do Gemini and Virgo. So let's talk about Gemini first. Okay. Excellent. So Gemini, here we go. What to say? What to say about Gemini? Other than it is the dual-bodied sign, literally. When we look at traditional astrology, mutable signs, or signs that lack boundaries, but also are very flexible, very adaptable, very changeable, are often called dual-bodied. Yeah. But in Gemini's case, as being represented by the twins, the two bodies, we literally have this interpretation kind of stamped onto Gemini. And Gemini is not necessarily the easiest sign to understand because it takes that dual-bodied nature and it really is able to chameleon itself into a million different other forms, or specifically echo the 12 other signs rather readily when it chooses to. So let's go ahead and delve into Gemini and see what we're working with this dual-bodied sign. Okay. So the image that I've taken for Gemini here is the jester or the trickster. And I think that that's definitely something that Gemini has in its blood, thanks to Mercury, but also because it's airy nature, because of its mutable nature. We're dealing with a sign that tends to flit, right? And be in some ways very cute and adorable like a hummingbird, and in other ways like very in your face, beating its wings at 1,000,000 miles an hour like a hummingbird. And that jester energy is what I like to think of when I think of Gemini, you know, always wearing a costume, always wrapping itself in a variety of colors, a variety of thoughts, a variety of feelings. You know, Gemini loves life and wants to explore all of it. And so when we look at the jester, the trickster, as the archetype of Gemini, I think that that's a beautiful image for us to kind of keep in mind as somebody who's constantly showing us how colorful life can be, but also succumbing to that colorfulness. Yeah. You know, Gemini will often be associated with the word bipolar, which I think is dangerous, especially as we start to advocate towards mental health awareness, and using a diagnosis like that frivolously is not necessarily helpful. And also, mental illness takes many, many different forms, and not everybody who expresses a high amount of emotional range is bipolar. But when we think of Gemini's ability to go from one end of the mental emotional extreme to the other very quickly, that's where that reputation starts to come forward. And part of that is the airy element of Gemini. So Gemini as an air sign, you know, when we think of air in nature, air is light, air is carefree. Air has the ability to turn itself into a massive hurricane. But on a day like today, you know, it can also be slightly windy, pleasant breeze. You know, it can be totally still. Yeah. But air is always there. Yeah, it's always filling up the space with something. Other times it's more dramatic than others, but air as an element can go unseen if it wishes, or it can make itself totally visible, like very in your face, if it so chooses. And because of that extreme, you know, air also is an element of change. But we pair that with the mode of mutability, also associated with the Vata archetype of Ayurveda. And we see, things like dryness, things like constant change, things like increased circulation, things like the frivolous, excuse me, things like the frivolous use of energy, all of very much being associated with Gemini. Gemini tends to be rather indiscriminate with its thoughts, with its feelings. It will adopt and cloak itself in whatever is near. Yeah, so it'll often change its conversational style. And in some ways, the Geminis that I've known have even been able to change their accents, their body language, their posture, their entire persona based on who they're communicating with, which honestly, it's fascinating to watch. The ruling planet of Gemini is Mercury, who is known as the trickster. Mercury is the messenger god, who is able to traverse every ounce of space, even the underworld, and pass freely without penalty. Mercury, known for his winged sandals, which allow him to do this, allow him to travel and transport. That's very much where we get that travel association with Gemini, the ability to get and receive messages. The communicative aspect of Gemini is all because of that Mercury rulership and Mercury's ability to do those things extremely well. Mercury is also the planet of the mind, which is where Gemini gets its very strong intellect. And being blessed by that planet bestows those virtues naturally. The symbol of Mercury is kind of what I look at as the Roman numeral 2. Yeah, which again, dual-bodied, the twins, the idea of two or seeing double with Mercury. There's a lovely story that when I think of Janus, the two-faced god, this allegory, which is very, very much Mercury at his finest. The story goes that Janus, or we could think of Mercury in this case, as a god, decided to walk down the main street of a local village, but he wore a hat that was red on one side and blue on the other. And after the god walked through the center of town, the townspeople all came together and they very hurriedly kind of discussed what they just saw. And half the town said, "Did you see that god in the red hat?" And the other half of the town said, "No, we saw a god in a blue hat. The god was wearing a blue hat." And war broke out. And it was so hilarious to the god that he decided to play another trick on the town. As the fighting ceased and as they got too tired to go at each other's throats anymore, the god returned to the opposite end of the village, flipped the hat around, and walked down the village again, this time putting the red side where he had put the blue side, and the blue side where he had put the red side of the hat. And so the town became equally as confused, but it's a moral of the story that says one person's view of the situation, or one person's view of divinity in this case, is not wrong just because they have a different opinion than you, or they've seen or they've experienced life in a different way than you. And I think that that's really what Gemini asks of us. And I think that that's what this sign is really good at, is considering all perspectives. It's the twins, it's the two sides of the equation. It's always, I also think that this is a good analogy. The idea of, there's how I see the situation, there's how you see the situation, and then there's the truth of the situation. And I think that that's very much the duality of Gemini at play, but neither end of the spectrum is always right. It's a spectrum for a reason. So Gemini's highest value is curiosity. Gemini's deepest weakness is also its curiosity. And that's, curiosity killed the cat. It's, excuse me, very much about the idea that the same thing that intrigues us, the same thing that can make us fascinated, the same thing that pulls our interest can also be our downfall. I've known several Geminis who have gotten into fights with me, because they they get too curious. And at a certain extent, curiosity can be wonderful, but it can also start to poke and prod and agitate. And as you start to unpack layers, you know, if Gemini loses interest, then it will simply drop the conversation. And that can be a little bit of a harsh reality for those who are not used to that flitting attention span of a Gemini. So what Gemini needs is stimulation. All the Geminis in my life have learned to stimulate themselves in a variety of ways. Some listen to music, some physically stimulate through tactile sensation, through clothes specifically, through massage, through drink, through food, but Gemini constantly needs to be stimulated in some way, shape, or form. Gemini relies on intrigue, the ability to be interested and to be fascinated in the pursuit of life. You know, if Gemini starts to lose that intrigue, to lose that fascination, they start to go flat. And Gemini does not like to go flat. Gemini is smothered by sameness. And that's something that I think a lot of people, especially signs that are earthy, especially signs that have the need for a little bit of routine in order to counterbalance their natural tendencies, Gemini absolutely hates routine. Because it creates blandness, you know, doing the same thing at the same time over and over and over. How can you live like that, Gemini says? But you know, we also need to respect that some people need and crave that routine in order to find their own unique sense of balance. Gemini just doesn't understand that. Also, what smothers Gemini as well is boredom. So again, the need to constantly be stimulated, even as they adjust to that stimulation. You know, Gemini is notorious for taking a thing, playing with that thing for, you know, couple hours, couple days, couple weeks, and then being tired of that thing, discarding it and trying to find a new thing. And that can be in relationships, that can be in media, that can be in a variety of different aspects. But I think it is important for us to understand that the enemy of Gemini is boredom. Cool. So that is a little bit about my good friend Gemini, the mutable air sign. I hope that you've enjoyed this presentation on Gemini. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to use the comment section below with the video. If you think that I missed something or if there was something that you'd like me to expand upon, feel free to ask. I'll be doing these videos for all the signs, so stay tuned, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and watch for all of our other signs as we kind of pump them through the queue as their days of the week start to come forward. I am a professional astrologer, so if you would like to go deep into your chart, maybe you have some strong Gemini placements that you'd like to hatch out, you can always visit my website at scorpiorisingastrology.com, click the consultations page for appointments, or if you'd like to learn astrology, feel free to look at the online classes that I have available. Until next time, may the stars be ever in your favor.